David Edward and Bill VanPatten discuss Bill's new book, Looks Are Deceiving.
Bill!
Hey, Dave.
Hey, it's good to see you again.
Oh, thanks. Good to see you. How are things in Florida?
Well, things are wonderful in Florida. How are things in California?
Oh, good, I guess. They're good. A little cloudy today, but that's okay. We need some rain. We're so desperate for rain.
That's fantastic. I understand that when you're not on podcasts, that you actually write books.
I do. I used to be a full-time academic, and I made the switch in 2018, and now I'm a full-time fiction writer. How's that?
And some might even say you're a prolific fiction writer.
Well, I mean, prolific's a relative term, right? I mean, there are people who write tons and tons and tons. I mean, I write a lot. Yeah, I write a lot. But
you write a lot.
And
you're pretty good at it.
Well, thanks. But you're not going to go to a library or go to a bookshelf and see like 100 titles with my name on it. You're not going to see that, but yeah.
Well, I was looking on Amazon. Yeah, you only have like 20, so you're being humble.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, and then we're going to talk about one of your books and the process of writing it. But obviously, you're someone that if someone is watching this and they're interested in getting into writing books, maybe for a living, you would be someone I think they'd want to listen to because you have headed down that path and you're well on that path, if I understand right.
Yeah, I'm trying. We're
So
talking about Looks Are Deceiving, but that's my second novel, actually. So yeah.
I was going to say, what book are we going to talk about today?
Looks Are Deceiving. Yeah.
Looks Are Deceiving.
Novel. Yep.
See, it's such a clever title that it felt conversational to me.
Well, you know where the title comes from?
You know what? That's where does it come from, Bill? That'd be a fantastic first question.
Am I anticipating your questions, Dave? Is that what I'm doing? Writers think a lot.
As always, you're a full step ahead of me. Yep.
No, actually, it comes from a line in the book. There's a scene where our hero, the narrator, his name is Will Christian. He's half Latino, and he doesn't look. I mean, like he's like me. He's my alter ego. I'm half Latino, and so he doesn't have those classic Latino Mexican looks, right? And so he's in the detective's office, and they're chatting, and he wants the address of this victim so he can go pay respects to the family. And the detective says, "Why would you want to do that?" And he goes, "It's a Latino thing." And the guy goes, "You don't look Latino." And he goes, "Well, looks are deceiving, detective." And then that whole looks are deceiving thing permeates the rest of the story because everybody is not what they seem to be in this novel. So,
wow, that's nice. So, what of all the books you've written, what is it that motivated you to write "Looks Can Be Deceiving"?
What motivated me was I wanted to write a
Looks
mystery.
are deceiving. Sorry, you know what? If I'm going to be sorry, I don't mean to step over you. If I'm going to be professional, I got to get the damn names right. And you were very gracious not to correct me. Feel free to correct me. But yeah, looks are deceiving. Sorry, I have the notes, but I'm trying not to like be looking over, away from the eye line. So I apologize.
Right.
Looks are deceiving.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's a podcast. People know. It's a free flowing. People know this. Okay. Yeah. So looks are deceiving.
Actually, amateur hour. We got it. Yeah.
No. Actually, most of my fiction is what you would call commercial or upmarket fiction, but I wanted to do a mystery. And so one day it was summer, because summers here are very hot in Chowchilla, California, the Central Valley, like 100, 105, 106, for like 2 months in a row. And I was pedaling along on my bike in the morning, get my routine exercise done. And I was on this main thoroughfare, and I looked out on this field, like acres and acres and acres of this drought-ridden, grassy, kind of like knee-high grass. And I stopped at the stop sign before I proceeded through the intersection, and I looked out and I went, God, this is a good place to dump a body. And then I went, oh, there's my story. A guy on a bike comes across a body in the field. And then things just went from there. So it was a routine bike ride for me that got me writing the story. Pretty mundane, huh?
Nice. That gives us a little bit of insights into the stuff you're thinking about, I guess. But that's the life of a writer, right?
Yeah, and I also wanted to write something that dove into some areas that you don't normally see in mystery. So I was able to get that in there too. So
Nice. Yeah, I've looked at the book, and it's. I don't want to give too much away, but I mean, if you want to go one layer deeper, I think because I think you've chosen, um, the mystery thriller genre, and I know this because I write schlock in the mystery thriller genre, there's a lot of topics that are well covered, but you have a very current topic for this book. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. I didn't mean for this to happen, but it just kind of emerged. The victims are all Latino, but they all turn out to be gay, and so the character's trying to figure out, are these hate crimes, and if they are, who are the hate crimes against? A ethnic group, or is it against a sexual orientation? What is it? Or is it something else going on? And
Right.
then and so he winds up using this dating app to track down the killer, which I think is a novel thing you don't much see in mystery. And he creates this fictitious character on the dating apps, so he can have like a facade, so he can go into the underbelly. I call it the down low underbelly of the Central Valley, trying to root out who this guy might be.
Yeah, see, I like the idea of a different kind of mystery and using and taking the mystery genre into the modern age, which is harder to do, I think, because we're all very used to, I guess, the pacing of these books, and when you start to introduce very modern concepts, it just provides the ability to do some really interesting things, which I think you've done. So, what would you say your overall writing process was to write this book? And then, since you've written so many books, I'm curious: do you continue to kind of refine that process, or do you have something now that just works for you, and you can kind of go and bang these out?
Well, I actually, because it was my second novel, so working on my first novel taught me a lot about discipline and sitting down and just writing. Sometimes you have to write just to write, and you may throw it away, but at least you've got something done and you know what you don't want to do if you throw it away. But this novel was different because it's fast-paced. The chapters are relatively short. There's like 53 chapters in this book. And it started to write itself after I got going. And fortunately for me, I always have multiple projects. And so I have short stories I'm working on, another novel I was thinking about. And then I had some leftover academic work. I still dabble. I'm just finishing my last couple of things with Cambridge University Press and some other things. So I had those things to distract me. So when you get to that point where it's almost like writer's block, you go, well, where's the plot's going to take me? Rather than dwell on it and just try to focus and pace your house or walk up and down the street to figure out what your plot's going to do, I just move on to some other project and clear it out of my mind, and then I come back to it with fresh eyes. And that usually helps. That process keeps me going. It keeps the discipline going. So it's having multiple projects and juggling that really helps me.
Interesting. And as my next question was going to be, did you experience writer's block? And if you did, why do you think you did? Or I'm sorry, if you did, what did you do to deal with it? And if you didn't, why do you think you didn't really run up against it?
I think I did experience a little bit of writer's block, not a lot, but some. Because when you're doing a mystery and you map it out, I'm not a big mapper. I don't like put everything on the page to see. I do it in my head. I do character development on the page, like who's this character, and I do background profiles on people and things like that. And sometimes I'll map out major plot points, but this mystery, I didn't do that. And so I had the beginning and the middle and the end, and I had some major highlights and some subplots, and that was all worked out. But every once in a while, probably about 4 times maybe, Dave, in the novel, in the writing of the novel, I got to a point where I go, oh crap, wait a minute, I can't do that. I got to back up, and how am I going to get out of this? And you stare at the page.
Yeah,
and you go,
that's, I know.
Oh, okay, back up, and then I'd go work on something else and come back to it with fresh eyes, like I said before. So that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, so sounds like stepping away and coming back, and then, and sometimes we all do it, right? You've written yourself you've written the characters into a situation that you're trying to figure out. Well, what happens next that's going to make any kind of sense, right? Because we got to keep this thing moving forward. How long did it take? Do you write in drafts? Did you do a first draft and a second draft and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I draft. I revise as I go as well. But yes, I wrote a first draft. I have a writing critique group that read it with me, the entire thing, week by week. We went over it.
Wow.
A writing coach, I sent it to a former writing coach. I said, hey, why don't you look at this? And he gave me feedback on it. And then I did a draft, and I sent it to a professional editor. I said, hey, I want you to look at this. Would you please? Yep. So he did. So by the time I got the final version done, 5 or 6 drafts with revising on the way. Because like I say, I'll write a chapter or 2 or 3 or 4, and then I'll come back and I'll look at what I've done. So you're always revising as you go. But full on drafts and going back and look at full drafts, so probably about 5 or 6 in the end. Yeah.
How long would you say the first draft took you?
Ooh, the first draft probably took about 3 to 4 months, maybe. About 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
I don't remember when I started.
And then the
about
whole
3 to 4 months,
process?
yeah. Whole process.
And then the
took
whole process?
About a year. The whole process took a year. All those different drafts, my critique group, the editor, all that, it took about a year. So in the end, it took about a year.
And this is
to get to that final version.
Yep. And sorry, I think we're on just a hair of a delay, so I'm stepping on you. I apologize.
That's right.
And this is a substantial book. So it's a substantial book. It's what, 80,000, 90,000 words. I mean, it's a big
No,
book.
it's just over. It's just over 70,000, like 72,000 words. But yeah, it's substantial. Yeah.
72,000. Okay. Yeah, but still, that's more like a typical, I guess, thriller book, which suggests that you know what you're doing, because you're writing to the word count of the genre, which of course is important. So that's great.
Trying to.
Did you have to do a lot of research? No, you are. Did you have to do a lot of research for this book?
Actually, yes and no. Okay. So I had to get on a dating app and figure out how it worked, and see what kind of weirdos show up on dating apps. And so that was some fun research. I'm probably the first author who ever gets to
That's
tax a
research,
dating app.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I did that, and that was really eye-opening to me, really eye-opening. And then I had to go down to the police department. I went down to the police department and spoke with a couple of people there, and I also want to get a good sense of what the actual department looked like and the physical space, because the Will Christian has to go several times to the police department to talk to the detective in charge, the lieutenant. And
were they
but
receptive?
Not a lot of other research.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. They were. I've never,
They
somebody
were?
actually on a writing group recently asked, posted, is there any lifeguards out there that could answer some questions for? I'm writing a novel, and there's this lifeguard, and everybody was saying, well, you can Google this, you can do that. And I said, well, why don't you just contact some lifeguards and interview them? I said, I've had really good luck over the years doing that. No problems talking to the police here. No problems talking to managers of stores. I'm just people will talk to you if you tell them you're not going to quote them. They're not going to be in the book. I'm not quoting you. You're not. I just need some background information. I found people to be pretty helpful. Yeah.
I didn't know if that was your strategy or if you just had to go out and be drunk and disorderly a couple times to kind of go through the process yourself.
Nope. Not my style. Drunk but never disorderly.
Yeah, not your style. No, I know you're a much better human being than I am. I would have considered that. So, so how long has the book been out?
The book has been out since, I want to say, October of 21. So about 6 months. Yeah. It's doing well,
6 months,
too,
okay.
if I can say
All right.
so.
Oh, and then
if I can say so myself.
I was going to ask you, how was it received?
I just posted another review. It's gotten 8 really, really strong and positive reviews from Kirkus and Readsy Discovery and Prairie Book
Yeah, it's a big
Review
one.
and Blue Ink, other places. So yeah, so just go to my website and you'll see it's gotten really good reviews. So I'm excited about that.
Good. Okay. And we'll put a link to your website below this this podcast.
Great. Yeah.
I forgot to ask, when you were writing the first draft specifically, did you write on a word count or a page count or a chapter count, or did you put a little outline? I don't mean a story outline, but I mean, did you know the pace you had to write? Did you know you wanted to write it in 4 months? That kind of stuff.
No, it didn't. I just did it. I knew I wanted short chapters. I wanted to be like a page turner. I want it to be like good airplane reading. You get on a plane, you just can't. You want to just keep reading, and you want the chapters to be short. 'Cause sometimes people read at night before they go to bed. They don't get very far. So if the chapters are too long, it's like they got to stop in the chapters. They get drowsy. So I was writing based on chapter length, trying to keep the chapters a certain length. And
That's interesting.
and
Okay.
yeah, yeah. But otherwise, I didn't have any other time schedule. I just let it go. I just went with the flow. Yeah.
Did you have a word count goal? Did you know the book was going to be 73,000 words, or did you just kind of let the story dictate that? Or
I let the story dictate that. One of the things that I do, I don't know if you do this, Dave, not what authors do, but sometimes my characters take control of the story. If you've got really well-defined characters and you're really inside their heads, they can take you places on the page you haven't thought of. And you go, oh, that's interesting. He would probably say this and do this. And all of a sudden it's just on the page because your character is helping to drive the narration or the narrative as much as the plot in your head. So, and that's a good thing actually, because your characters can just push you along. That also helps with writer's block too. Like you can sit back and go, what would my character actually do?
Right, what would he do?
And you think about that, yeah. And you just kind of, authors have to trust their characters, if that makes any sense. And so I did.
Well,
I did
what's
this book, and
interesting.
it paid off.
What's interesting is if I would have heard you say that, the me of 4 years ago, I would have no clue what you were saying. And now I know. Not only do I know exactly what you're saying, I get all excited because I've worked hard. We talked a little bit. I've worked hard to refine my process, and I do exactly what you just described. For me, I have characters, and I'm mostly writing in a series, so they're very, very well established at this time. I know how they think, and then I pick, a goofy situation. I drop them into it, and they write the story as much as I do. I do know when I do it. I know the type of ending I'm going for. It doesn't mean I know the ending, but I know the type of resolution, and then I pick what I call, I don't know all the writing words, I call it a theme or subtext. So I try and make it like loosely about something. Like we can talk about Looks Are Deceiving if you did this in Panama Red, the one book that I've had any kind of success with. I wanted it to be about an adventure, but then also about just the bureaucracy and administration that overlays military organizations, and that, so that's like the subtext of the book.
Right. What's interesting is that I didn't mean to do a subtext. The reviewers are pointing this out. Because I have Latino blood in me. I'm half Mexican. I'm very proud of that and of my background, and so I always have Latino or gay characters in my stories when possible, and when appropriate. And so what emerged in this book was this underlying, California is a blue state, as you know, but it's not necessarily. One of the lines from the book is that don't be fooled by the blueness of California. It's dotted with conservative areas like jalapenos on a bed of nachos. And so parts of the Central Valley I live are very conservative, right?
Jalapenos.
And so
jalapenos on a bed of nachos.
On a bed of
That's
nachos.
brilliant. Okay. Yeah.
And it fits with the story to him, not the character. He would say that, right? So there's this underlying tension of racism in the book, and also homophobia. And I didn't mean it for to be there. I wanted just a good mystery, but it turned out in the end that was sort of unconsciously there, and the reviewers are pointing it out. So I went, oh, okay, good. I'm glad I had that little.
It's interesting.
There,
It's just interesting. We all. When we spoke earlier, I mentioned I watched all the videos when I was trying to figure out if I wanted to be in this industry, and I watched Stephen King. And one of the things he said, which again I didn't understand until much later, someone asked him, "Well, how do you pick what you want your next book to be about?" And he said, "Well, I pick a place where I want to spend some time." And I was like, what? That's crazy. Because, your book's about murders and racism and homophobia and whatever else. It's not about that, but it's like, why would you want to spend time there? But that's not really how it feels when you're writing it. It's just a very different experience. And while those things are important, I was, I had a similar experience with some of my books. People say, "Well, this is gritty and brutal." I'm like, really? That's not how I was just trying to explain kind of how I see things, you know. So it's a fascinating view into the mind of the person who wrote it, and it's not always an honest view, right? I mean, we make stuff up, so we don't always have to write just from our own experiences and have some kind of message that we're trying to resonate in addition to someone reading a book. But sometimes it happens anyway, which I just find fascinating.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does
Well,
happen. It does happen.
So Bill, I appreciate your time. What would your advice be to someone who had found these videos and was working on a book or interested in working on a book, or maybe they have a book or two out, but what would your advice be to an aspiring writer from what you've learned from your experience?
One thing I tell people, or I would tell people, and I just tell my students this in academia too, is don't write in isolation. There's no such thing as writing in a vacuum where you're a sole author. Share your work, join a critique group,
That's powerful.
get feedback along the way. Don't just think you're going to write and you're in your little ivory tower writing. So reach out and work with people. Get a critique group. That's one thing. A second thing I would say is be disciplined. Find time to write. Just block it out and do it. And you can be on a timeline, you cannot be on a timeline, but the best thing to do is say, this is my dedicated time to writing. This is what I'm going to do. Don't answer the phone. Put your phone in a drawer. Don't answer texts. So just do that. And the other thing I would say is don't be afraid and don't be disappointed. Don't be afraid of what you're doing because every writer goes through it. They just do. And so don't doubt yourself. Don't be afraid. Just have the courage to keep going. But be prepared for disappointment in the sense of it's very hard to get published, as you know. A lot of it's self-published for a reason. About 1% of authors who submit cold to agents get accepted. That sounds very discouraging, but
It sounds high to me. That sounds high.
Yeah, it's a tight market.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't write. You write because you have to write. You write because you need to write. That's what I tell people. People say, "Why do you write?" But I go, "Because if I don't, I'll go crazy. I need to write.
Yeah.
It's what I do. It's what I am now, right?" So just keep doing
Right.
it and stick with it. And again, don't do it in isolation. That's the worst thing is cut yourself off from people. No, reach out, join a group, get friends who can read for you, and so on.
I want to follow up on that. That's good because oftentimes I'm talking to people that have. So I've gotten lots of bad reviews. Your books don't tend to get bad reviews. So I'm guessing that takes place with your whatever you want to call them, beta writers or early readers. All that stuff.
Yeah.
Do they give you negative feedback that you incorporate? I mean, is it that kind of feedback that you get sometimes?
Oh yeah. You get feedback from everything from a plot or structure or device you've used down to don't say that word. If you repeated that word 3 times in one paragraph, that's too many repetitions in one paragraph. It's the full gamut of because there are different kinds of personalities who focus on different things, and what you want to hear is one that what you're doing is worth doing, so keep doing it. But here's how to improve it, right? And that's what I always listen for. Should I keep doing what I'm doing? And they haven't told me that this story's a piece of crap or no, this is chuck this. No, you're not. Now I never get that.
Right.
So I get that encouragement to keep going with what I'm working on. But then I get the positive critical feedback that helps me improve it. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I have to go back.
It's
and
funny you
rewrite
bring up this.
something. I do.
It's funny you bring up the same word. I as you know, I mentioned I just went through a writing blitz. I wrote almost 1 million words in a year. I feel like I have the process defined. I was writing this morning, as I always do, and it's the same thing. I write a paragraph, I go back and look at it, and I use the same. And it can be any word: wind, air, tense. The way the human brain works is you get this word and you think it's brilliant, and you try and make a point out of it, and you go back and realize that you use this. There's 8 sentences in the paragraph, and you use it in every sentence. It's like no. So, and sometimes you don't see it. That's the hard part to think about self-editing, is you just don't see it. So
Right.
I think that's
Right.
important. I mean,
It takes other
and it
people.
seems trite. Go ahead.
Right. And what you just said reminded me of one other thing too, Dave, is that read aloud what you've written.
Yeah.
If you're in a critique group, read it aloud. Don't just let them read it. And when you've got done writing something like a chapter or a scene or something, print it out and read it out loud. Don't just sit at the computer screen and read it. You're going to miss stuff. Read out loud and hear your voice. You catch so much doing that. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
One right, and what everyone does, and I do now read it out loud too, because you're right. But what we all do is we read it in our head. It's like we let the voice in our head say it, but again, there's something about that where we're not really hearing it right. I don't know how to say it. There's some psychological barrier to it because it sounds brilliant in our head, and you read it out loud and you realize, well, no one could even say this dialogue because it's so tongue twisty. I mean, just anything. So I think reading it out loud is important,
Right. Yep.
and getting the feedback before you publish is hugely important. So that's great. All right, well, sir, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. I'm going to encourage folks to look you up. You're actually a very impressive person. We didn't go over all of that,
Thank
but you're someone that we should listen to when it comes to this stuff. And hopefully, I hope your book does great. And if you're up for it, maybe in 6 months we can catch up and I can see what you're doing and maybe you got another book out.
Yeah. I'd love to talk to you some more, Dave. No problem. Anytime. Always.
All right. Bill, thank you very much, sir. Bye.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for watching. Please consider hitting the subscribe button.